Oh, man.
Are we on?
I'm not saying that.
Hey, Friday.
Since it's published, it should be running. You're not seeing it.
There we are.
Are we on? Are we live?
I'm seeing it now. Yeah.
All right, everybody that's out there in TV land, we are now finally live. A couple technical difficulties again this week, but I think we've got them worked out now. Reports from the room say that we are live now. So, Steve Cundiff here. I'm running the meeting tonight. Jim Zickenfuss, our chairperson, is out of town on vacation this week. We'll get through the rest of the agenda. We have a couple of invited guests tonight from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We've had some discussions on our deer populations down here, the condition of our herd that lives down here amongst all of us. And we asked them to come down and kind of survey the situation, look at our deer population, and give us some comments on maybe a potential for a management program so that we can get the health and vitality of our animals up and hopefully get them so we're getting to eat what they should eat instead of some of the plants and household items we have around our houses. So tonight we're fortunate to have Chris Dodge from Hocking County Wildlife Officer, who I believe is going to be the mouthpiece for tonight and speaking to us. Along with him, since we do span 2 counties down here, we also have Tony Zirkle from Fairfield County. So, gentlemen, I'm going to leave it up to you, and if you'll run through a quick program with us, we'd appreciate it.
All right, yeah, I appreciate you guys having us here. My name is Chris Dodge. I'm the Hocking County Wildlife Officer with the ODNR Division of Wildlife, and of course Tony Zirkle here with me out of Fairfield County. So I guess just kind of a brief rundown of who we are, what we do. As wildlife officers, we're responsible for enforcing the wildlife laws in the state of Ohio. In addition to other management activities with deer or other wildlife, and that includes what we're here tonight for, some human-wildlife conflict issues that we're having. So I was contacted about a month ago by Randy to discuss some of the deer issues that are taking place here. And again, that's one of the things that we do within our agency is one of our sections is we have a wildlife management section that deals specifically with the deer population, amongst other things. And then Tony and I, we're more involved on the law side of things. But we're kind of the local contact person as far as answering those questions. So kind of long-winded response there with that. So basically, the Division of Wildlife, we're responsible for all of the native wildlife in the state of Ohio. That's kind of a broad overview of our mission. Part of that is the biggest part of that, I guess, as far as wildlife management is concerned for the huntable species is hunting. So the deer, I guess the deer aspect of things is where we're getting to with this. From a management perspective, we only have a few options that are really feasible for the entire state of Ohio. We have a big diverse state with a lot of unique situations there. So we have our general plan of how we manage the deer herd in the state of Ohio statewide, and then we kind of get into the smaller villages and cities, communities, and stuff like that. We have to kind of tweak what we do on a statewide level to assist these other outfits. So that's why we're here today with this. On a statewide basis, we hunt. That's how we manage our deer herd in the state of Ohio. We've had basically through regulation changes and things of that nature, we're able to, I guess, get our deer population at target levels. What's I guess socially acceptable. So we don't have too many deer, so that they have poor health. We don't have too few deer. So with hunting, we are removing the harvestable surplus of animals. And what I mean by that is the number of animals that we can take out of the population without harming the overall numbers. So basically, they're still able to reproduce and maintain a population. We're not damaging that. So I guess that's kind of a very, very generic overview of our deer management program statewide. However, we understand that what works, in some areas doesn't work in others. So that's why we have some of our specialties here. Just a quick rundown. Coming here to Highway Hills, we did notice that the deer browse line is really high, meaning basically a lot of the understory here has been browsed upon by deer. So it's basically any yard we look at, we can see where deer have eaten something. And also, too, the other thing that a real big standout was the size of the deer. We've got really small deer here. Of course, we wouldn't be called in if there weren't some other issues, underlying issues here with the deer. So I think it's pretty safe to say, without any sort of a management program here at Hideaway Hills, your deer population it's overpopulated. So I guess that's the simplest way for me to put it. You've got too many deer here. So the issue with the too many deer, we do have the poor health, the small size, and the biggest concern that I have too would be some sort of disease outbreak too. If with so many deer in close proximity to one another, if there were an illness, it would spread like wildfire, and then we'd have a whole bunch of dead deer. So I guess the ultimate goal is to, I guess, find a level here where we're not having the deer conflict issues, and we're not so concerned with starvation, with disease, or the other conflicts, but landscaping plants being decimated. I heard a story of a deer that became aggressive and wandered into someone's shed, and then a person ended up with a broken arm as a result of that, because the deer and the people they're not really on the they're not really on the same page here. So as the deer become more accustomed to people, less desensitized, they become more comfortable. That's where things can get a little dangerous, because at the end of the day, these are still wild animals. If there are issues there where deer are cornered, or situations like that where deer is injured, or say closer to the rut with male bucks, they can become aggressive as well. And we've seen that where bucks have gored people with their antlers, or other deer have stood on their hind legs and swatted people with their paws and stuff like that. So I guess ultimately that's one of the goals, is to minimize the chances of something like that happening as well. We don't want people getting hurt. We don't want our plants to get decimated, and we don't want the deer to starve. I mean, quite frankly, we don't want them to starve. We don't want them to get sick and spread that like wildfire. So I think, the best bet moving forward would be to have a reduction in those numbers. There are some ways to accomplish this. I'll just start with the one that was brought up recently to me was deer sterilization or contraception. Basically, the deer sterilization, it's a procedure where deer are captured. They are, I guess, what am I looking for here? Tranquilized, there we go. And then basically the reproductive parts are made so that they can't reproduce, I guess is the best way for me to put that. The problem with sterilization is this. It is not it's not a management tool here in Ohio. Currently, it's only approved for research, and there are special permissions that are required for that program to even take place. The only company, to my knowledge, that has done a project like this is a company called White Buffalo, and they did a project out in Cincinnati a few years back. And so I got on their website, and just simple looking on their website, they have some details as far as how the process works. Basically, what would have to happen here at Hideaway Hills is you'd have to have some sort of an aerial survey, probably involving infrared, to determine how many deer you actually have here on the property, which Hideaway Hills is a very large property. For the sterilization to become effective, they need to treat 80% of the does on the property in order to make that program work. Can I take a break? Are we good?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I muted my mic.
Okay. So 80% of the does have to be sterilized. So for one, that requires us to know how many deer are here. Then we have to capture and tranquilize 80% of those deer, and then that has to be maintained annually. What that does is it stops them, it basically slows the rate of reproduction. So a few of them are still reproducing, but not at that high rate. It doesn't reduce the number of mouths at the table, so it still takes a few years to get those numbers down. The deer basically have to die of old age or other natural factors. So the problem with that is, again, the resources that it takes to do that. In this terrain that is here, and the habitat that you have here, I don't know how it would be even feasible for you guys to, one, count all the deer that are here and then treat 80% of those. That number is also affected by ingress and egress of outside deer. So this not being in a fence, per se, outside deer can come in and out, so that's going to affect your numbers as well. Additionally, that program is not free, so that costs, it can cost, and it's a private company, so they can charge whatever they feel that they need to charge to collect their data and do all that other stuff, but their general figures are around $1,500 to $2,000 per deer treated. So if you can imagine paying $2,000 for 80% of the does on Highway Hills property, I mean, that's
Can you hear me?
from a
Yes, thank you.
monetary perspective. I mean, I don't know what your guys' situation is. That's not for us to even delve into, but there is a cost associated with that program. And again, that would require special permissions from the Division of Wildlife to even make that happen. And again, that program would have to be maintained for a number of years in order to keep the population from exploding again. And you stop the program, the reproduction continues, and then we have too many deer again. Contraception is another. Let me back up a little bit. The other thing with the sterilization is it depends on the area and the program, but it's between 2 and 5% mortality rate. So not every deer that's treated will recover from the anesthesia or the tranquilizer drugs. So that they're still going to have that issue as well. Contraception is also very expensive, but it's not nearly as effective as the sterilization. But again, that comes at a price too. They're administering drugs to does to prevent them from being able to breed. So that's, again, another program that is going to require them to know, they need to know how many deer are here, so they know they're treating the correct amount of deer. So I guess from my perspective, looking at the situation you guys have here, I don't know that would even be the most effective or feasible option for you. The money part aside, I think it would be very difficult to accomplish your task of gathering 80% of the does and sterilizing them, and then maintaining that program every year. So, and they're very upfront about that on their website as far as the ingress, egress, and then the challenges to that. So, that's kind of, I guess, our perspective on that is, that's also not widely used in the state of Ohio. There's probably a reason for that. Because of the challenges that are with it. So again, I'm not a spokesman for it, against it, whatever. That's just the research that I've done on it, and it's not been widely used management tool.
So if a program like that's used, so is that administered through you guys through the state, or do we contract with this
It will be contracted with the company that does that, but then of course we have to have permissions from the Division of Wildlife in order to do that. So, and like I said, it's not approved as a management tool in the state of Ohio. Right now, it is purely a research tool. So it would be basically treated as a research project. So,
$2,000 a head and just the massive manual labor involved with
right, that's the other thing.
Tracing the deer, counting the deer. I assume you'd have to tag the deer so you would know if you've already identified and worked with that deer. And
right, yeah,
wow.
And the big issue here, I guess the challenge would be the terrain with Highway Hills. It's so hilly and there's so much vegetation and stuff. In order to effectively capture and treat that many deer on such a large area, and that's the other thing too, this is larger than the sample size in Cincinnati. It was a suburb of Cincinnati. It was a flat area and it was a much smaller area, so it was totally different than what we even have here. So I just think it would be extremely challenging to even attempt something like that. But again, that's an option that you guys, that the board, I guess, can entertain. But there are a lot of challenges with it, and I guess from our perspective, that wouldn't be our first approach to address an overpopulation. So,
Is the contraceptive option, is it still the same that you gotta be in that 80% range?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it is, because that's the contraception and the sterilization are kind of along the same lines there as far as numbers wise, how many need to be treated. So basically that way of reducing herd again is to treat those to stop them from reproducing, and then what you have now basically has to die off more or less for lack of better terms, and then the deer just aren't reproducing as quickly. So your herd reduction is going to come much slower, and again, with those other challenges, I don't know that it can even be realized to its full potential, just due to the nature of the property that we have here. So that's a big challenge here.
so other options.
The other options, we've worked with other municipalities on deer damage control permits. And basically that, and it is a lethal means of control. But it's the program itself is administered through the Division of Wildlife, and there's special permitting that's involved. It requires investigation by the Division of Wildlife. We have to determine, what is being damaged, how much is being damaged, and it would depend on how you do it. Theoretically, if each property owner were to apply for permits, that would require an investigation for each individual property. And there would be special parameters set forth in that as well, as far as how many deer you can harvest or things of that nature. Or I guess Highway Hills wanted to use it for common areas or something like that. I guess that could be an option as well, as far as where these activities are to take place.
Randy, that was a question he asked, and I didn't know, and you may not be able to know off the top of your head. So what would our common areas, Area 54 and things like this, how much area is that? Do you have any idea?
I think there's right around 50 acres.
Okay, so you got about 50 acres out
I
of,
think it's around
how many acres are within the community? 1,600 acres?
17.
1,700 acres. So 50 acres out of 1,700 acres.
It's a pretty small percentage.
It's a small percentage, and if it's not even, I don't know how evenly distributed it is or not. But that's the other thing too. I guess we see that with public land versus private land in regards to deer hunting. The areas where the deer are hunted the most would be our public properties, and our deer numbers are lower on those properties in general than on private property. And I guess where I'm getting at with that is that that could be effective for reducing deer numbers at those specific locations, but much beyond that, it's not really doing as much. It's not really quite as effective. And I guess that's kind of why I personally, just knowing what I know about the property, I don't know that that's the best option that's going to give you the best result. Truthfully, in the simplest terms, a reduction of deer numbers overall is going to mean a healthier population. We've got less chance for the disease spread. We don't have the issues with the small deer or going into winter and starving because there's just not simply enough food. They are eating themselves out of house and home. They are running out of food. So that is creating the issue, and we can see that just within the community versus outside the community. If we see deer out in fields on Highway Hills Road versus within the community, there's an obvious size difference there. It also affects their reproductive health. So if we can get fewer mouths at the table, ultimately that will lead to a healthier population. And I think would be probably everybody's goal is to have, some people don't want to see deer numbers reduced, but we get to a situation where we have too many, and that's where the state of Ohio, for instance, if we don't manage the deer herd through hunting, which, removes anywhere between, between 150 to 200,000 deer per year is what we remove through hunting in the state of Ohio. And that's without negatively affecting the overall population. We still have deer in the state of Ohio killing almost 200,000 deer a year. Everybody still sees deer, so we're not decimating the population. We are, again, removing the harvestable surplus. We're removing a few animals off the top without affecting the overall population, so we can kind of maintain that level there. And I think that's probably a situation where you'd want to be with Highway Hills. You don't want to see every deer gone, but a reduction overall, get that number down a little bit lower to where the deer are healthier. I think that would be a better bet. And again, these deer are still reproducing every year. So, we remove a few animals this year, they're still reproducing. We're still going to have those animals again next year. So, we're not at all, talking about decimating a resource here by any means. So,
Good question for you.
Sure.
So a lot of comments, we had a gentleman come up and talk about triplets, and I think, before that I spoke to both of you guys, and it's very, very common to see twins down here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Following the same doe every year. I mean, is that normal within the state of Ohio?
It is. It is. And so one of the studies that we do every 10 years is a fetus study, where we find roadkill does, and what we do is we cut them open and we measure the fetus size and we count the number of fetuses and we age the doe with tooth wear on the lower jawbone. And so we know through our studies that in general, a doe that's dropping a fawn for the first year, a lot of times she'll drop one. If it's a second year or third or fourth year, what have you, it is not at all uncommon for does to have twins, triplets, and we've even seen quadruplets before too. So, a good healthy doe beyond a year old will drop twins each year. pretty regularly, so that's not uncommon at all. We have seen though when the deer aren't as healthy, they aren't reproducing as well. It's almost like Mother Nature's control, but once it gets to that point where it's almost a little bit too little too late. The deer are hungry, and that's why they're not healthy enough to reproduce yet. That's I guess the bottom line there. With the fawn deer, the youngest deer, the 6-month-old deer, if they don't hit 50 pounds, they're not reproducing. And if they were healthier, they could. So I guess that's another measure through the reproductive health, I guess, how healthy the population is. The other thing that we see too is when we do our research is antler beam diameter on bucks, and we see that too if they're deer in poor health, the bucks get smaller because they don't have the nutrients, the minerals, and stuff like that to grow the antlers. So that's another indicator. You're not seeing the big bucks that you used to, or you're seeing smaller deer. The deer aren't reproducing like they could potentially be doing and stuff like that. So those are all issues that we see with the overpopulation issues.
I have a question,
Sure.
and forgive me, I'm originally from New Jersey.
We won't hold it again.
What is a healthy number of deer per acre?
So that depends on the habitat type
Okay.
and in the area. So what here specifically in this community will be different than say a more agricultural area that has agricultural farm fields and stuff like that. So I can't specifically answer that question. That might be one that our biologists could definitely help out with as far as the terrain and the area and stuff like that. What would be a good number? And it's generally deer per square mile is how they
Per
make
mile,
that
right.
assessment.
No, I'm asking this because in my past life, I was overseeing the nature park too, and we did the infrared study,
Mm-hmm.
and it was over $10,000. I don't know the exact number, but that was only 265 acres.
Okay.
They found over 500 deer. They estimated that our park at that time would be a pasture in 20 years
Mm-hmm.
due to the deer eating everything and killing everything. It was, unfortunately, it's public property, so we had to jump through a million hoops and still never got to a point in which we could do anything. But I think my big question is as a professional, what do you recommend? I know the contraceptive, that's iffy, it's pricey, there's a lot of different ifs and not. I mean, are we considering a controlled hunt, I guess is my question.
Well, so I guess from that's a decision that the board has to make as far as what you guys specifically want to do. And my recommendation would be bow hunting for the property. That I guess in the simplest terms. And that can be, the state of Ohio, we have regulations on the season anyways, as far as season dates, bag limits, allowable implements, what you can use to hunt with. So we have our guideline or our rules that the public must follow. Hideaway Hills could add some other restrictions or regulations with that as well, so that they can be tailored to this specific area. With houses being where they are and stuff like that, neighbors being close, I don't know that a firearms hunt, that's something that you guys could entertain. I don't know that that's the best idea, but bow hunting has a much lower range as far as your effectiveness, and you're not dealing with firearms, you're dealing with archery equipment. And the community could also impose regulations on shooting from elevated positions, so you're shooting down. So we have a lot of cities throughout the state of Ohio and parks and things of that nature that they have, they actually allow bow hunting. For instance, Cleveland, in the suburbs of Cleveland, the city of Athens, Toledo, these are all major cities, and a lot of them are much flatter, don't have the terrain advantage that you guys have here, that allow bow hunting to occur every year with great success. So I think that bow hunting itself is something that can be administered here on Hideaway Hills, and what would make that more effective is that you can disperse over the whole property. It's not just focused on a few common areas spaced throughout, it's theoretically the whole property. That being said, I don't want it to seem like it might be the Wild West with arrows flying everywhere and things of that nature, because keep in mind, not everybody is going to bow hunt. So that's not like every single person in every house is going to bow hunt. Bow hunting requires skill and patience, and it requires hunters to be diligent and pick their shots because they want to make an effective and ethical shot. So it isn't throwing arrows out in a spray and hoping that something happens. You know, it's a very, I guess, no pun intended, but a very targeted approach, and that you have to take your time and you have to, you know, practice your skill, your craft here as far as being effective in that bow hunting situation. That doesn't require special permits from the Division of Wildlife to administer that program. That can be done on their own. You know, each person owns their property as a property owner. They wouldn't even have to purchase a hunting license or a deer permit in order to hunt on their own property. If they wanted to hunt a neighbor's property or somewhere else, they would have to purchase a hunting license or a deer permit. But as far as hunting on your own property, you know, there's nothing special that's required there. But again, there are rules within the hunting season that a hunter must follow. Some of the challenges with bow hunting would be, you know, a hunting without permission situation so if you hunt on somebody else's property, you have to have their permission. If you were to shoot a deer and it were to run onto a neighboring property, by law, you have to get landowner permission before you go to retrieve that deer. In Ohio, we do not allow you just to cross whatever property line you want to go retrieve a deer. You have to have landowner permission before you go retrieve the deer. So that way, you know, our property owner's rights aren't being violated. Nobody else has the right to be there other than the property owner, and they can determine who can go retrieve deer or not. Another thing that comes up is liability. In Ohio, we have what's called the Recreational Users Liability Act, and it's in law. It protects property owners. You know, if you were to allow somebody to hunt on your property and say they trip and fall on a stump and sprain their ankle or what have you, or, you know, any number of those things there, if someone hurts themselves while they're hunting on your property and they're lawfully engaged in that practice and they're allowed to be there, the property owner isn't responsible for that. And that's kind of the gist of the Recreational Users Liability Act.
And that would even pertain down here on you know, acre and a half, 2 acre lots that people are owning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep,
It also
absolutely.
pertains to the common area.
Our common areas. So our common areas would be common as members of the association itself. So would a member of the association have to have a license to hunt on that common area?
Yes. So the landowner exemption only applies to the landowner, the landowner's spouse, and the landowner's children. If you are not on your own land or your spouse's land or on your parents' land, any place else, you have to have a hunting license and a deer permit to harvest a deer. So that being said, if you have common areas that you want to allow hunting on, you know, maybe it might be good for the community to have a lottery system or some other way so you can, I guess, regulate how many people are hunting there so you don't have a whole bunch of people crammed into one spot. Perhaps a lottery system would be good so you know who is hunting there, and, you know, without having too many hunters there and crossing paths and issues in that regard. But they still have to have a hunting license and a deer permit. The other thing I want to touch on too is for the non-hunters, every deer that's harvested by a hunter, it has to be checked in. It has to be reported to the Division of Wildlife, and that helps us with our management program because we can't manage the population if we don't know how many are being removed by hunters each year. So that's what the hunting license and the deer permit do. They afford you the privilege to hunt on properties other than your own, and then of course reporting that harvest gives us the data that we need to be able to effectively manage the deer herd.
Can you speak to, I guess the concerns would be, you know, is this just going to be people going out and destroying the population, but under the licensed agreement and actual hunting here, which would still be enforced by you guys, even if we were on our own property, if we did something wrong, you would respond to a complaint on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess the biggest, you know, concern or something we may find out too is explain the responsibility that a hunter has when he shoots an animal, that we're not just going to leave dead carcasses laying around every place to become a hazard to others.
So every deer that a person harvests, they're required to then check in that animal, to tag and check in that animal. So even if they're hunting on their own property, they still have to report that harvest, and they're required, if they've harvested deer, they're required to check it in. So, you know, they can't just shoot deer and leave them lay. That's a problem. That's an issue. And we don't want to see that. We don't want the deer to go to waste. So the obligation is on the hunter to follow the laws and to do his or her best to retrieve the animal with landowner permission. If it so runs on someone else's property, then still claim that harvest. That harvest then counts against the hunter's what's called the individual bag limit, and that's the number of deer that you're allowed to harvest in a specific year. So we also regulate the number that people can harvest. So people can't just keep shooting deer endlessly. Each person has an individual bag limit, and that's part of the reporting process too.
Well, I just wanted to be that clear, so
Yeah.
if we would decide to go this way, under your guys' advisement, we just want to make that clear that this isn't just an open range slaughter of, defenseless wild animals. This is here for a purpose, and we have to do this legally, and we do have to claim the carcass itself and process the meat or get it to a food pantry or work within those guidelines there. It's not just going to be a shoot, destroy, leave and lay process.
Right, absolutely. That's
I just want people to be able to hear and
yeah.
understand
There's
that.
a lot. Again, that with the deer are regulated for that reason. I guess what even started the whole concept of the Division of Wildlife back in 1873 as the Ohio Fish Commission. We realized that overhunting caused issues as far as we're decimating our resources and stuff like that. We realized that if we're going to have animals and we're going to harvest them, it has to be regulated. So that's part of the whole process too. Is knowing how many people are out there. That's our licensing, and getting that permission, I guess, in advance to go hunt, and then reporting that, and then individual bag limits so that we're not taking more than we should. So again, that's I know I've used the term a lot, the harvestable surplus, but we're not removing more than what the population, not removing more than what the population can handle negatively. The other thing I didn't touch on is it's a term called carrying capacity, and that's how many animals that a particular habitat type can support. And I guess that's back to the question I received earlier as far as what is an appropriate number per square mile or for the area. That's a term defined as carrying capacity. That's how many animals we can hold in this specific spot. And again, that's going to require more follow-up than what I'm prepared for here today. Real quick here, let me.
Can I ask real quick?
Sure.
Could you share with us what are the penalties that a person faces for illegally harvesting deer? How
I can
severe
touch
are
on
those
that one.
penalties?
Yeah, go ahead.
So deer violations in the state of Ohio are misdemeanor in the 3rd degree. Hocking County has a fine schedule. Fairfield County has a fine schedule. In Fairfield County, first offense, $275. That includes your fine plus court cost. If somebody has multiple violations, each violation is a separate offense. There could be jail time associated with it, but most of the people run into their simple violations, tagging violations, fail to report. They're going to get 1 or 2 tickets, pay the fines. If we get into somebody that's like intentionally poaching or has some kind of organized poaching ring, then we get into bigger cases where we consult with the prosecutor. Trophy deer have a restitution value. There's a formula in our law. So if somebody poaches a trophy deer, a buck, they pay restitution for that if it was ordered by the judge. So substantial fines. Some of the 200-inch deer, I know one is around $24,000.
Misdemeanor. So that would be a maximum of a $250 fine and up to 30 days in jail if the judge so chose to do that. Taking or possessing deer, so if someone shoots a deer with an unlawful implement or they hunt without permission on somebody else's property, on the first offense, it's a 3rd-degree misdemeanor, which can be up to a $500 fine and 60 days in jail. And then I guess the big one is the hunting without permission on a subsequent offense. We treat that one pretty seriously. People trespassing, hunting where they're not supposed to be. It jumps up to a 2nd-degree misdemeanor, which is up to a $750 fine or up to 90 days in jail. And then, so like Tony was saying, if it's someone that's involved in a bigger case, have more issues and stuff like that, that's something that's also taken into consideration that, going through the court process, that gets worked out. But, potentially if someone sees a very large buck, trophy buck, and they shoot it on somebody else's property without permission because they're greedy and they're allowed to hunt now and they want to get greedy, I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars in fines, potential jail time for doing that. So, I mean, it's not a risk that's worth taking for anybody. uh, the odds of getting caught, especially in the community here, are large because you have lots of
A
neighbors.
lot of eyes.
So, yeah, exactly. So, and I think in general, bow hunters are I don't, how do I put this? Bow hunters are responsible people. They take a lot of time and practice a lot in their equipment to be able to be skilled marksmen and to be able to be effective and ethical. So again, it's not someone that only hunts one weekend a year and just goes out and blasts a whole bunch of rounds off and spray and pray, I guess. In general, there are people that take their time and they have patience and things of that nature. The other thing I want to talk about too with if you guys decide to do a program like this, and you wanted to say have a qualification shoot, so that's an option too. In the city of Marietta, you have to show up to a qualification shoot and shoot a couple arrows into a target to show that you are proficient enough to be able to hit a deer if you're going to deer hunt. So if you haven't gone through that proficiency shoot, you can't hunt. So that might be an option as well. I touched on the elevated position, so you're shooting down, you're not shooting across, you don't have to worry as much about arrows skipping past or anything else like that. And then the other thing I want to talk about too is some places use what's called an earn a buck program. Hunters, if they see a nice buck, they want to be able to harvest that animal. You're going to help your population more though if we harvest does. It might be an incentive for hunters to earn a buck. You have to shoot a doe before you have the privilege of shooting a buck. So that's an option too. If you guys wanted to have that sort of restriction, you could do something like that. So we're not telling you no, you can't shoot a buck. We're just telling you you have to take a doe first. And so that's an option as well. There are different ideas, I guess, as far as if you wanted to, I guess, have some more controls over the program, so that there's no harm in taking a more conservative approach, I guess, at least starting out. So if you guys wanted to have some additional restrictions, that are tailored toward the community here, that would be fine too. I mean, you guys can be more restrictive than what's
Theoretically, we could have, what you're saying, theoretically on our common areas, the 50 acres roughly that we have that are common areas, damage control permits could be issued for those areas, and then landowners on their land, standard.
That could be a possibility, or just, if you're going to hunt a common area, you have to have a hunting license and a deer permit too. So that would be an option as well. Because Clear Creek Metro Park, they have a lottery system and they have a control hunt there, where you get your hunting license and deer permit, and they have a safety program that you have to go through first, and get checked in, so they know who's specifically hunting the property before you can go hunt there. So you could have that too. So fewer restrictions on individual landowner property, and then you could further restrict it on the common areas and make those other rules, I guess.
With an elevated position, is there a standard to that? Because I wouldn't want John Doe, no pun intended, to jump on his picnic table, take his bow out and shoot at a deer.
Well,
Say, well, I'm elevated, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely.
Is that up to us?
There's no standard, I guess. There's no restriction or regulation or anything like that. I mean, there's some of the patios and decks on these homes are higher than what you'd put a tree stand, so that would be more than sufficient too. And I guess the ultimate goal of an elevated position, and it may not even be necessary based on the terrain that we have here. If this were a completely flat area, that might be applicable. That might be more, I guess, applicable. But the terrain being as it is, I mean, it may not be necessary in certain spots. The terrain itself, maybe somebody's backyard only goes downhill, so there's really no benefit to being in an elevated position. I guess the benefit of an elevated position is to keep people from shooting arrows on a flat plane and going a long distance and traveling really far. So, that may be a case-by-case basis too. It may not even be necessary. It's just an idea, I guess, that I had, to reduce the chances of arrows skipping beyond where they should.
What kind of typical distance could a arrow travel?
It depends. An arrow can go a few hundred yards, theoretically, if the conditions are right. As far as bow hunting is concerned, though, in general, kind of the rule of thumb is 40 yards or less would be your effective range, that you would want to shoot at a deer, and most people don't even want to shoot that far. That's not saying the arrow can't travel farther than that, and oftentimes it does. You know, if you miss your target, the arrow can ricochet, glance off of some things. Arrows pass through deer too, as well. They don't just stop if they hit a deer sometimes. So that's something to take into consideration too. So, you know, hunters are going to want to make sure that they have a safe backstop. You know, their target and beyond it is safe to shoot. I mean, if it's not a safe direction to shoot, then, you know, they shouldn't be taking that shot. So yeah, that's the other thing too. I mean, if a hunter were to shoot a structure, a vehicle, a pet, or something like that, I mean, that's a problem as well. That we investigate those often as well. So, you know, a person is responsible if they for that arrow once they let it go. So, you know, if it strikes something that it's not intended to, the person who fired it is still responsible for it.
That was another thing when I came to the last meeting that I was at, I presented some ideas for regulations of the government. Also, what you could do is the fletching on the arrows, a name and a lot number on that, written on that arrow to be used. That way, if somebody finds an arrow sticking in the tire of their truck, they, you know, be able to find out who shot that arrow.
I believe Marietta has that regulation as well. You have to write your name on the fletching of the arrow.
Yep.
And Tony, you had some, was it Newark or?
Yeah, City of Newark has that fletching regulation. You have to label your arrows. They've had a successful hunting program for 6, 7, 8 years now.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the point of bringing these other places. We're talking about highly populated cities, you know, in the Cleveland area, Newark and Athens and stuff like that have successfully had bow hunting programs for many, many years. So, you know, there's little doubt that it could be done safely and effectively here at Hideaway Hills, in my opinion. But again, you know, that's not our decision to make as far as how the community wants to proceed with that.
When you talk about bow hunting, does that include crossbows?
Yes, it does. Yeah, longbows or crossbows, and those are defined in our laws as well as far as what is legally a crossbow, what is a compound bow or longbow. We have minimum.
Those are defined in our laws as well as far as what is legally a crossbow, what is a compound bow or longbow.
All right. So anyway,
Linda, did you have a comment?
I do.
Okay.
You were talking about Newark. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When the gentleman from ODNR was talking about bow hunting in Newark, Ohio, where is that bow hunting occurring? Is that occurring in subdivisions? Is that occurring in common areas? Where is that occurring?
I could get you the information for their program. I am not aware of it since it's not in my county. But I'll talk to the officer that is assigned up there to Licking County and get the rules for that. I know it's within the city limits because it's regulated by the city of Newark. So I'll find out if it's on just private property or if it is on city-owned properties as well.
So that would be
And
something.
in the other cities, that you named, Cleveland, Toledo, Akron, are those in common areas or are those in private property suburb areas?
yeah, each city has generally their own management plan or something similar to it. So I can't speak specifically for each one, but I know like in the city of Athens and also in Marietta, people can hunt on their own properties. I don't know that they have programs for the common areas, but they can do hunt privately owned property or property.
So it would be in residential areas.
Right, in the residential areas, yes. Right.
I can speak firsthand for the city of Granville, village of Granville. I was in their hunting program and they had both private property owners that signed up to be in the program and they had common areas that was owned by the village that they allowed through a lottery a certain number of people to hunt, even their village owned properties.
When you talk about a lottery,
Now,
how many do they choose?
Which one you want to go with?
Linda, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so the private property, is there any side to the private property, or is it any private property?
It's any private property. We don't have minimum requirements as far as a property size to be able to hunt or to qualify for landowner exemption.
But Linda, we have full control to do that inside of Hideaway Hills. We can, I think we can,
That's right.
We can set the
we
limit.
can set a limit for our internal. So,
Yeah, I know. I'm going to, kind of step back now.
All right, I thought I heard you click in. That's why I wanted to make sure we got you in there, Linda. So that's good.
So really, the bottom line is, the opinion is we have too many deer and too many deer is unhealthy.
Correct.
So if we as a community established a standard, a system, whatever, we would be within the laws of Ohio to do something like this.
Correct.
during our open
Yes,
season, if
during
we
the
were
season,
hiring,
yes,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and again, that's, not to bring money into it, but it always seems to come up. That's something that, if you decide to allow bow hunting, it requires no special permits from us, as far as the community is concerned, or Highway Hills is concerned. There's no special permitting or expenditures or anything else like that. That's something that each individual property owner can engage in, and if you guys want to set further regulations on that, you can. But as far as cost effective and then overall effectiveness, dispersing where you would be potentially removing deer from, it's going to help you out a whole lot more than some of the other programs. And again, these deer, they're reproducing every single year, so it's not a situation where you're going to decimate the herd and then you never see deer again. It's simply not going to happen.
Well, see, that's why I was commenting. I didn't know how frequent, the doubles or twins and triplets are. So if we have 100 does bred with, essentially we have that 100, and if we have a high likelihood of twins, that 100 turns into 300.
Correct.
And I think that's a situation, and that's why, for those come from the city to come here, we are fortunate to be able to go about anywhere and be able to witness nature and see this, but it's the declining health of it. And again, by you guys being here, we wanted to have the direction from the state of Ohio, make sure the legalities and what we need to do here tonight. We're taking it into consideration of an option. First and foremost, I think as a committee, we're going to have to seriously look at safety issues and weigh the pros and the cons out on this thing. But I don't think we want to get to the situation where we have an infested herd down here, and then we find, deceased deer laying every place if one of these diseases come in that you guys talk about. And obviously it's prevalent enough in nature that this does occur. And with our, our smaller and sicker deer here, I think you guys made that really clear. That's a high potential for us to go to that direction pretty quick, even, I think. So we just wanted to make sure that we exercised our due diligence and looked at all the options that we could. And you guys have anything else? We're pushing on 8 o'clock here now, and these guys would probably like to go home.
Yeah, just one other thing I will add. I'm sorry if I cut anybody
No,
off
you're
here.
fine.
Our website is wildohio.gov. Again, that's wildohio.gov. But there are a lot of resources on there, and people can go on there and actually see some of the nuisance, abatement techniques and things of that nature, and also all the hunting laws and things of that nature, so that people can see firsthand, hey, what does the Division of Wildlife do, and what are some of the rules and programs that they have in place, because overall, we want to ensure the overall health of all of our wildlife populations. So that's our business. That's what we do. So if people want to learn more about it, that's a resource for it. And again, if you guys have more questions or more specific questions, you can reach out to us. We have full-time biologists. That's all I do is that aspect of things as far as numbers and data and all that stuff like that. That we're more than happy to help out with stuff like that. So.
I think we may look to you for something like that. When I was talking to him as we were touring around a little bit, Randy, I see the South Central product coming through, or the work coming through, and they're going to be doing a lot of ditching through common areas and things like this, and also to increase the health of our deer, maybe looking at some food plot things or something like this, working with South Central. They're going to reseed these areas back. Why not put it into one of these mixtures that the deer could actually, because we know there's no food source left for them on the ground, and maybe we can create this, because we may limit the number of deer, but if we don't get a good food source for them, then we still have the potential for not having a healthy deer population, from what I've heard you guys say too. So it might be something that we look at going down the road.
Great idea.
We're not trying to get rid of all deer.
No.
That's not the intention. We want to make them healthy and we want to make them so we can all enjoy it.
Right, and have sustainable food source too. That's one more thing, and then I'm done. I promise.
Well,
That's- I know feeding has come up before, baiting and stuff like that. The issue with that is you're artificially, I guess, supporting parts of the population there when people are baiting and stuff like that. That's not a cure to any of these problems. And in fact, if there were some sort of a disease outbreak, that would be even worse because you're concentrating all those mouths in one small area, and the risk of transmitting those diseases from one to the other greatly increases when people do that. So, especially in situations like this, why we discourage baiting. And people putting food out, people mean well, but ultimately they're still wild animals and they need to have a sustainable food source out there to rely on. So,
The cafeteria is not always open if you throw your scraps out in the side yard at night, so.
yeah, exactly.
We have to be able to.
Were there any other questions? I probably kind of jumped in there.
The only quick question is, what's the season in 2020 for bow, or is it over?
Our archery season is in for 4 months. It comes in the last Saturday of September, and it will last until the first weekend of the first Sunday of February.
Okay.
So the deer archery season is long. So we've been bow hunting now for over a month now.
All
So
right, very good, thank you.
Bag limits, Hocking County, you can harvest 2 deer per person, and Fairfield County, you can harvest 3.
and those bag limits do change sometimes year to year. Hocking County was a 3-deer county, but that's some of our restrictions. Again, we determined that in order to give, I guess, numbers a chance to kind of come back up a little bit, we reduced our deer bag limit. And then we make adjustments as far as season dates, bag limits, and things of that nature. So deer numbers start to increase again, then we'll become more liberal with our bag limits. And if we need to tighten it up, we certainly will. But that's part of our process too, with the checking process, is to make sure that we're not harvesting too many animals and making adjustments from there.
Very good.
Great.
It's been very enlightening. Appreciate you guys taking time to come out and do this. And I'm sure we'll be communicating with you and some of your counterparts as we go forward, looking at different options and things.
Right.
We want to do the right things, and that's why we went to you guys as the experts for doing this.
Okay. And I have some more resources. I was going to email Randy. I got his email address, so Randy
Yeah,
will have
whatever
that.
you can send, we can publish onto our
Yeah,
Facebook
absolutely.
page.
So I can email some resources. So if we can be of any other assistance, just let us know.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great, appreciate it. Well, that was eye-opening.
Very good.
A lot of deer. And again, for the population, we're not telling you we're gonna start hunting deer tomorrow. We're only considering our options, I guess, out there. So,
Do we want to see if any of these guys have questions? Or they don't?
do you gentlemen have open business, or are you just coming to listen to the ODR?
I was here for the deer hunt.
Okay, so I guess our other 2 guests have satisfied your need for information for this process. We'll get back to our regular agenda. Previous to, we have published all the numbers online for everybody to see, to keep the meeting moving here. Since they're already published for everybody to see, we won't go through those. We'll jump right into our, I guess, our news and notes and our discussion items for the night, and we'll let Randy kind of lead us off there and get through our list here as efficiently as we can.
Okay, as I spoke before, I did purchase a splitter and some cable for whichever TV we wanted to put it on. We will have an additional modem coming in on Thursday, so we'll have 3 different modems, which means we can watch 3 different channels on whichever TV we want to watch it on. I'll let the Food Service Committee determine that, but we will need to know by Thursday which TV they want that box on, preferably the one in the dining room, because that's the bigger size TV. And then we can run that splitter off of any of those modems to the other TV in the corner of the bar.
Randy, can we move one of the 3 TVs from the bar out to the open space?
We could, yes, we could, if we determine where you want it. We do have an additional TV here.
Yeah, because I was thinking, we have the one over the fireplace. If we had one over the kitchen, there's a 8-foot wall.
Yeah.
And there's space, if we could put a TV up there, then we'd have 2 in the bar and 2 in the open space.
Okay.
And the 2 in the open space, do we want them the same? I would say yes and the same, and then maybe in the bar, one and have the other one with the ability to watch them.
The only issue is the length of the cable. A 50-foot cable should stretch from that modem on the fireplace to the one over top of the kitchen, depending on how we run it. Hopefully. I don't know. If not, then we'll have to buy a long cable or a connector. I don't know if you can make a connector.
You did connect coax.
Well, they're not coax, they're HDMI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're HDMI.
All right.
Well, it might be something if they're here and connecting and see,
Yeah.
let them tell us what we need, if it's not
Okay.
something they can do for us possibly.
So they don't give you a wireless for each TV then, or?
Unfortunately, they don't.
Okay.
That'd be too easy.
That would-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Then the next item here is, we had talked a month ago about a safe for the chef's office, and, I don't know if anybody else has looked into that or not.
I've looked into it.
Okay,
Okay.
because we really need one, and I'll
Right.
tell you why. The bag, the money bag that was put in the slot there the other day got stuck.
Okay.
And I had to have maintenance come out up here to get it out, because it was, the way it was put in, the lock part of it wouldn't fit all the way through the slot, so we had to take it back through, and we really need that safe.
Now understood. And, the one that you looked at was very nice, very heavy duty. I looked at other ones that were cheaper and maybe not fireproof, but there are fireproof and waterproof lock bags that we can get. So my question is, do we want to go with a safe similar to what we have now, and that was the $630 one?
They had 500 and something, yeah.
Buy something, okay. There are different ones. I even looked at one that had like two safes, one with the slot and the one with something underneath. Now, I was thinking about, with the lodge, you have to start out with a bank. And the bank is money that's put into the drawer to make change and such. And that bank stays constant. So what you could do is, at the end of the night, you count out what your bank should be. You put that in one of the envelopes or the money bags, and then you put the profit in the other money bag. And then you could put the profit in one safe, slot in the one safe, and the reoccurring bank in the other safe. Now, I think the bank, the safe you had now is for the drawers to fit in, right? I've talked to some of the workers, and they say they're okay with putting the money in the money bags and things like that. And so after the money goes in, it sits in the safe till penny counts it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we verify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do this in executive session? This is not something we want out on the internet.
It's too late at this point.
Well, I understand.
I know what you're saying.
When and how we.
That's true. Well, and that gets to my one point too.
Okay, so let's just talk about safes that you have researched.
Okay.
That's safe.
Okay.
Safe.
The safe that Randy had is very, very good. The other one that I looked at is approximately the same size through Amazon, and it's $300 as opposed to the $5 something. It depends on what we really want. This heavy duty one is really, it's a nice
Heavy
safe.
duty. Yeah.
It's heavy duty.
How much additional do we store? I mean, a shoebox full, 6 shoeboxes full?
Well,
What
no.
other type documents do we keep secure?
They do have a money box, which is about the size of a shoebox, actually, that they put in there. Then they put the tray in there. That's what they put in there.
Well, it sounds like maybe we could spend the money in going towards fireproof with a smaller size. If they are willing to do the countdowns and put them into bags, then, which we wouldn't have to have such a bigger space, is what you're
Exactly.
saying for the drawer itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can maybe get better protection
Yeah.
for the same type money by going that way if the employees are willing to do that. And the countdown's taking place anyways.
Well,
So,
and it's good for, I don't want to get into that. So it's something that,
but if we have 2 file cabinet drawers of other things that we need to secure in that, then we need to stay with the bigger
No.
size. Okay, so maybe a better fireproof rated and safe might work. So what do you have on that option for us?
The fireproof safe was the one that Randy had. The one that I had was not fireproof. The bags themselves were fireproof warranty.
Okay, well, and that's,
And
as
that's,
long as the money doesn't burn up, I'm pretty good.
that's the difference. You know, it's,
So for a safe and fireproof bags, what are we looking at dollar-wise?
safe is a little under 300. The bags are, these bags are 15 apiece. Locking is a little bit more. I mean, these are just fireproof bags, they don't lock themselves. And we have lock bags now. Okay. Are they Rifkin?
Brand name, I don't know, we get them from the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the banks can give it to us too. The banks probably have the waterproof fireproof bags now.
So with hearing what he said, if our employees are willing to do the countdowns and store the proceeds in the bags, thus giving us a better safe, would we want to go to, have you look at that same style, but something with a fire rating?
Sure, I can do that.
I mean, I hate to keep prolonging this,
No.
because we really
I
need
really
something
need it.
here.
Yeah, I heard the door's ready to fall off and that would.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Well, we're not using that one at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
so,
So I guess if somebody wanted to entertain a motion for that size safe and a fireproof, we could probably put that with a set dollar limit of
And then I could email.
$500, and then he could go ahead and get that
I
pushed
think
through.
that's a great
If it's an Amazon item here, we'll probably likelihood to have it here by the end of the week. And that's probably as quick as we can get.
I doubt it, but, you know, we could have it here by next week.
Yeah, it would probably be next week, but that's the thing, I mean, like I said, one that Randy has is fireproof, it's good, but it fits the drawers. The ones that I were looking at was more for the bag, the drop off, with the savings there to the side. But I will do some more research, and if I can find something that are 500, I'll sit and talk with Randy and we'll put it out.
I will move to that you have the approval to make that expenditure up to the $500 as you see fit to get the best combination of safe and bag that you can.
Randy, if you would talk to the bank to see if they have, the rated bags.
Second,
Second.
you all right with it?
I'm fine with it.
I'm good with it.
Got my homework.
Thank
There
you
you
very
go,
much
Randy,
for
we'll
doing
get you a
that.
safe. Sorry for the delay, I know these things take time. Very good, I'm glad we got something fixed tonight, that's pretty good. I like when we get this stuff
Something
done.
else.
Something off the list.
Not mine.
Okay, going forward,
sir.
roads expense, 92,032. That's what we've spent on the roads, this year, excluding, our chip and seal. The chip and seal count, we've spent, let's see, no, we had, in the chip and seal account right now, we have $52,427. We wanted to keep that at least 20, so we're good there. And they are still doing some asphalting, so. And the chip and seal expense, year to date is $151,284. So that's where we are with that. Any questions on that?
So that leaves us a net carryover, or,
Well, with they're still buying,
I know, I'm
so
going.
it's, I think they're gonna nail right at the 20 grand.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
we've been
gonna
able
be
to
pretty
take
close.
advantage of the better weather and get some of these things
Yep.
and not having to delay them to next year too, so.
Right.
That's probably a positive aspect
It
that you
is.
see there.
Yep.
That's good. We're gaining ground. The roads are looking better. You know,
Yeah.
I realize they don't look like Interstate 71, but the patchwork and holding the berms and the ditch edges and things that they're doing are gonna pay us dividends down the road as we continue with the chips and seals. We're building that good base under. Here, I'm looking at you, talking to you, and you're the expert on this, but, I mean, I can see a difference in the work they're being able to do this year. And again, pushing out that chip and seal to a contractor has allowed them this time and opportunity to do this other work too, so I think it's a good project we did this year. Proud of everybody that's involved with that. Our maintenance guys are great.
They are.
Member play set, that one kind of threw me, so you give me some clarification on that.
Okay, we had a member that, has offered a play set at their house from their home. There's a picture of it right there. It's a nice little set. However, I was concerned that it wasn't a commercial set and whether it would hold up. The two play sets that we have now, we made sure they were commercial there. They don't know whether they are or not. They're willing to give that to us. And if we don't take it, they'll put it out on Facebook. So, that was my only concern. Now, if
Is there a
anybody,
place we could utilize it?
well,
That's first thing.
yeah, I mean, we could put it up here probably. There's probably a spot up here we could put it. I don't
Is
know.
there anything near the pool? Would it be something they could use there where kids on swim breaks or things like this would be able to use that, or
We
families?
could possibly put it over on the other side of the tennis courts. There's a flat area over there. There's a possibility we could put it over there. There's really no
We have
other.
people here that, you know, could be considered to look at this and see if it's structurally sound or not, I think. And I think anybody with a good set of heads on them, look at the materials of construction.
Yeah, we've been invited to go ahead down there and take a look at it. Anybody that wants to, I can make it.
The picture looks like it's well maintained and it's.
Yeah. It's supposed to, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the slide is a little iffy as where whether or not it's heavy duty enough.
Okay.
But if we got somebody that wants to go down and take a look at it, I'm sure they already told us that we're welcome to.
I know that's a pretty small project for you. Do you think you could get yourself to that point to see if this looks safe?
Yep, I'm gonna take a look at it.
Okay.
Now, you have to try the slide to tell us if it works.
That looks identical to the place that was in my backyard,
Okay.
before with all the kids.
Yeah, it doesn't look like cheap tubing construction. It looks like good wood structure, as long as the wood's not to rotting points and things like that. My thought was just if we had a place to put it by the pool
Yeah.
or somewhere like that, and then
Well, that's a
maybe
good
the pool
idea.
committee wouldn't, but I think before we put it there, we want to mention it to them and see if they'd be interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see some kids playing on it during a swim break or something.
I'll get you the location
Okay.
tomorrow and you can take a look at it whenever you want to. I'll let them know that we are considering it.
Yeah, let me know who has it and
Right.
where they're at, and I'll give them a call.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Very good.
Okay, this next item was a package storage and distribution. I was able to find pods, and I'm not sure who, I think JJ that found the containers.
No, I did.
Who was that? Was that you, Marty?
Yeah.
So, we really need to get something in here. The numbers are going to start going up sky high, and so what would you like to do? The pod, I don't remember, Marty, what the cost of the.
Roughly the 20-foot, container was $2,000.
That rent or buy?
That was buy. And then there was a $350 delivery charge on there. And that was something that was gonna be watertight. It wasn't a brand new one, wasn't,
Yeah, I've seen some of them advertised. I think they give you a year leak proof and some
Yeah,
kind of
and-
structural guarantees with them.
I'd have to go back and look at the quote again.
So if we were able to go some that way, would there be somewhere else that we could utilize that?
Well, they've got one over the shooting range.
Correct, but I'm thinking, how wide is this?
Let me think.
8 foot wide, 8 by 8 by.
How wide are our mowers? They could be moved down to the golf course. If we could put 4 or 5 mowers inside of this thing, is 20 foot long enough to do that? But I'm looking, can we use it, the rest of the year when we don't have that influx, can we make good use of this if we purchase it?
That would be the question.
And to store equipment that's sitting outside right now, until we can find funds to have a building to put that in, this could be some good temporary storage is my thought, kind of.
Marty, did you check a 40-footer?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. So the 40-footer is $2,080 and a $390 delivery charge.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it. That last 20 foot's pretty cheap, or the additional 20 foot's pretty cheap.
Yeah, because this one I found is $500 a month.
Yeah.
The pod is $500 a month.
And they're not that big, I don't think.
No, it's 16 footer.
So we would be able to salvage 40 foot somewhere in the very close vicinity to where we're at now, either at that end right there by where the mailboxes are, somewhere close there, or
Could it be where
we
they
can
park,
figure out where it would go.
where they park now, where the security parks now? Just right along that fence line there. That way they only have to
Wouldn't
go
look very,
across.
it wouldn't look very good right there. It would be better if it was behind the building that is already there, but I don't know if we have that.
40 feet.
We do have 40 feet back there, but I don't know the idea of putting it over there where they park along the fence.
So the neat thing on this too is there's no sales tax on it.
Oh, cool.
Availability, delivery time frames, anything like that?
It's coming, the containers are here in Columbus, they've got them inside.
I mean, for something that we can use for the cost of renting something for 3 or 4 months and have it to be able to store some of our equipment, and get it out of the weather, it really seems like a good thing. And yes, it's gonna be ugly. I don't care where we put it, it's not gonna be a pretty thing.
Yeah.
No, I was wrong about the 20 foot, it's 1540.
Okay, well,
Still-
so still
Still,
28.
for $500 more, you're doubling your
$500
size.
Right.
I will make a motion if it's okay, sir.
Please?
So moved.
I move that we purchase the 40 footer.
Second.
I'm sure you're okay
I'm
with
okay
it,
with that.
as I.
All right. Man, we are knocking through this stuff.
Let's get her done.
I
I don't got money to pick now. I mean, this is definitely a need, and I was glad to see the numbers rose some through Amazon days, but it wasn't as scary as, it wasn't as scary as I thought. And, you know, it could be potentially because some homeowners may be shifting some of their deliveries elsewhere, but holiday season, it's inevitable. I mean, it's,
Marty, get with me on that, however you wanna handle the ordering of that thing.
Yeah, I'll forward the quote over to you,
Okay.
actually to everybody, and then
Okay.
I'll let you just go ahead and buy it the way you
Okay.
normally would.
Okay. And then I'll arrange delivery.
Yeah.
And then we'll really have to decide
Yep.
where to put it.
Better go down there with a tape measure and start looking where we got.
And think about electrical too.
Yeah, the line. You
And
want lights
shelving.
there.
Yeah, at least have some sort of lights or.
Some sort of shelving in there too.
You know, you might get some battery, full chain battery lights too,
You might.
instead of worrying about.
But I think you still
electric.
need shelving in there too.
Yeah,
Bring record in.
right. Whether we build it or,
Better guys, as winter weather sets in and gets a little crappier, they can throw some shelves together. I've seen them work. They can probably come up with something like that for us.
Okay, Jim Sickafus, asked that we talk about, clubhouse smoking on the back deck. Did you all see that email, I trust, or would you like me to read it, or how would you want to go about that?
I saw it.
I saw it.
You're familiar with what the discussion was?
Yeah.
So, pre-COVID, this was, again, we went through the process of it being a smoking area, and there was some concerns over health issues, meeting the requirements and regulations in the state of Ohio health departments. Randy did the research, we had them out here, they inspected the area, and they approved that it would be a safe and proper legal smoking area at the clubhouse on that back deck. When COVID hit, due to the lack of space there, and since it was warming up, that was available seating so that we could keep our seating capacity up at the clubhouse. And now with wintertime coming, but now the addition of some additional seating and places for people to come now at the lodge if they choose to, either place. But the smokers, they do need a place to do this, and it is more convenient there than them having to go out to the shelter house. We end up with safety issues when it snows and people having to walk out there and things like this. So it's really not a decision. It's more of just reverting it back to the smoking area that we had previously already approved by the health departments and told us that we were legal to do this. It's basically just reversing our temporary stay order when we entered into COVID. So that's the decision.
Yeah, let me.
If you wanted to discuss a little more.
Yeah, let me just add a little bit to that. When the health department was here, if it had been up to them, they would have said no. The regulation says it has to be open on at least two sides, which it is. But their consideration was the fact that if any smoke could get in through the doorway, then it would be a violation. So if there happens to be a smoker out there, or the health department is in here inspecting, and somebody opens that door and they smell smoke, that would be a violation. Now, likelihood of that happening is probably nil, and basically the state pretty much overrode the county's recommendation, and which made it legal. And so we wouldn't want to put blinds up in there of any kind. We do need to leave that open, and so therefore it would be okay to smoke on the back deck. Now, with what Jim's recommending here, I don't see a problem with it. I don't think the employees like it too much, but it is not going to be a violation of the fire rules. The other issue was if there was another door in there, it would be fine.
So, what's the issue with the employees?
Pardon me?
What's the issue with the employees?
The other issue was the door. Alright.
Linda, I hear your volume come up. Go ahead.
There is,
Can you mute your computer? It's overriding.
yeah, hold on, I muted my computer. So the issue is, of course, there is smoke that will come through the door when there are people out there smoking and the door opens. But moreover, if there are people who are non-smokers that want to go outside and be on the deck, that may not be possible. There are people who are allergic to smoke, have asthma, or just don't like it. So it's kind of the minority ruling in the court. So I understand that we are reverting back, supposedly, but I don't know that our reversion is maybe for the betterment of the majority. So that's a concern. And it's really, as Randy mentioned a little earlier, is a technical violation.
Well, I think what Jim said was with
Not
the,
a scam.
I'm sorry. With what Jim said was the fact that it was going to be quite a bit cooler and a lot of people won't be going out there to eat. And so that's why I think he decided to revert back to allowing that to be a smoking deck.
I understand, but I don't know that that's good for everyone. Because if I want to go outside, for example, or whomever that is a non-smoker, and they want to go outside and sit, have a drink, or just stand out there, that's probably not going to be a good environment for them. And when you open the door, smoke does come in.
I think we can address the issue the smoke coming in the door. As far as the minority and majority, I don't know that we've ever had anybody complain that they were a non-smoker and wanted to go out there and in the cold and sit there and on the picnic tables. So I don't know about the majority or the minority. We're just looking here at trying to make things, I guess, applicable to everybody without inclusion. And our options for the secondary smoking area there proposes in itself safety issues of having people walking across from the clubhouse out to the shelter house. So, I mean, there's a safety concern there we also need to look and address when the roads are ice and snow covered also. They make downdraft blowers for the doors. We can easily install a downdraft or look into that and actually put up an air curtain there if that has become an issue. But the only complaints that we ever had people or concerns that anyone ever addressed prior to this was that it could happen, and yet those people were never actually patrons of the clubhouse during those periods of time. So, I don't know that there's a majority or
I don't know.
minority issue.
Wait a minute. I've heard concern. Me, myself, personally, I've heard concern. And then I want to add, I'm just pointing out that later on in the agenda, there is a topic about enclosing the shelter house. Who's going to go there? Is that smoking? Is that non-smoking? I'm just trying to point out that it seems like the benefit of being able to enjoy the environment at the clubhouse is more conducive to those who smoke. You don't have to agree with me, that's all right. I'm just pointing out something that I think is a little bit of an anomaly.
Okay. I'm just basing on what we did and why we put it into place, and that was the discussion that I brought up. I guess if somebody wants to enjoy the fresh air in January, we could look at installing something at the front door, which would totally separate the smokers from the non-smokers also. It just, we're trying to keep peace down here. We're trying to make it, a community that everybody can live in. And that's why we're just discussing the options now tonight. History has told us what we did in the past did work, and we had minimal complaints from that. And the ones that we did hear complain about it were actually not even patrons. So we're just trying to make everybody as socially accepted and happy as we can down here. We can't always make the determination that the majority may or may not like when it comes down to a ruling that, just because you're a minority shouldn't mean that you should be totally left out of consideration for something either.
That's true, and I would agree with that, and nor should they be given more consideration than the white majority. So I'm not.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I am saying that the majority should have just as much rights, if not more rights, because they are the majority. I'm not saying that there should not be a place taken into account for those folks who smoke. I'm not saying that. But it should not be to the detriment of those who do not. And that's all I have to say.
Marty, do you have a comment?
I was just gonna say that correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that was set up with the designated smoking area is consistent with any restaurant operating in Ohio, right? Has the right to allow smoking out.
That is correct.
So it's consistent with the law, it's consistent with practices out in the general public, right?
It's not something special we're doing. Yeah, as many of the, the outside bars, restaurants, and establishments, even in Columbus, went to this outdoor seating arrangement, out on the sidewalks. The city gave them permission to expand into those areas. They would follow on the same guidelines, yes.
Okay.
JJ?
I'm thinking, starting with the winter months coming, we used to allow that to happen. In the summertime, I could see where people might want to go out and sit, but in the wintertime, I really wouldn't want to go sit out there and eat out there. So for the winter, I can see the clubhouse having smoking on the back deck again. And as Linda said later on the agenda, there's an enclosed the core shelter house. If and when that is done, then I think we can readdress this again and take a look at it.
Yes.
But for the winter months, right now, with everything being as it is now, I think, going back to the old rule of allowing the smoke back there, I'm okay with it. I'm not a smoker, but I'm okay with it. If I want to go out for some fresh air, I'll go out the front door. That's just my feeling, and
That was where I was going. Do a 6 month, that put us to the end of April, which is the beginning of deck season. We look at it at that time, see what we've done to the shelter house, and go from there.
Okay. So, Marty, you're in agreement with that?
Right, yeah.
So on the winter months, what we're saying then is, we'll take it back to the way it originally was pre-COVID, and then we'll look at it again after the winter months and the cold weather ends again, and then look that we can shift and look at another situation with enclosures on the, and again, I don't know what the plan is on the enclosure for the shelter house, but to me, it seems like they're just wanting to put some windbreaks, some tarps or something up there. It's not like we're fully putting walls up or anything like that. It's a temporary situation for the last few Ohio State football games to allow people to congregate, watch the games together, and still be able to social distance and keep keep everybody safe, so it's not a permanent structure change
No.
at this point for the shelter house.
You
It could be down the road.
You could even change it during the day. You could have it open, close it, but we can get that one.
Okay, so I hear the consensus of our group that we would allow smoking to begin again there and run through, let's say, the 1st of April.
I'd say first.
And we'll
that's 5
revisit the
months.
1st of April, because we want to make sure that we're in consideration of everybody. And at this time, if somebody wishes to go outside, we would ask them to use the front door and this, not having to enter into that space there. At the same time, I think, Randy, maybe we should look into maybe one of these air curtains or something that would help us keep that air from coming through the door if it was opened. I have no idea. I know there's technology there. I don't know if it's $200 or $2,000, but I think we definitely need to look into it. Now, with the same thing, I think if we have legitimate problems coming from this, then we need to address those additional problems coming forward. If we don't have consideration from the patrons that are out there smoking and use some due regard for others that are inside eating, then I think we need to be able to open this back up and revisit that again. But I feel that you guys are telling me that we don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Let's go back to the way we were, and if any other situations come up, we'll handle those as we come.
Someone wants to sit on that deck in 10-degree weather and have a cigarette, I'm all for it.
That's true commitment to something that I don't have to worry about myself either. So. Okay, so Randy, that's
Okay.
where we'll go.
Okay.
Effective dates,
Okay. Got it.
1st November.
Yeah.
Next week. I have talked to Jim on that. We've had the same discussion, and we wanted to make sure that we had concessions and understanding on both sides, and nothing is permanent. But we can't stop something before we at least give it a shot, just to be fair to everybody. So that's how we'll leave it for right now. Then. Very good. Okay, Randy. How about the employee Christmas fund payment options?
Okay, it was brought up to make it easier for members to donate to the employee Christmas fund, is possibly go with a Venmo or PayPal account. And so Penny was asked to look into that, and to accept payments, there's a fee of 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. It seems to be cost prohibitive for the club and employees for the Christmas fund. Members can pay cash or utilize their bank bill pay for free, or they could utilize the club ACH at 10 cents per transaction. Personally, I think, yes, the Venmo may be a little bit easier, but when you're looking at the 2.9% and 30% per transaction, I don't know that's such a great idea. I mean, it's worked very well in the past, the way we've done it, and even with the new ACH, we're offering at only 10 cents per transaction. I don't think it would cut into the employee fund as much as the Venmo account would.
Yeah, I mean, so we were, excess of $20,000 of.
I think it was about 16,
Okay.
something like that.
So at 3%, that is a considerable amount of money that is going to be paid to a third party to allow us to do this.
Exactly.
And instead of rewarding what it's set up for to our employees. I know it's still a small amount, but.
Well, it's a small amount per member, but overall, for the employees, it's quite a bit.
You could offer convenience for our residents that are part-time and are out here through the week. It could give them another option to be able to contribute to that, or even those that aren't even here during the winter that go south. It may open some opportunities and allow them to contribute too. But I don't think we want to do with the hand delivery to the office or the mail to the office either. I think we can offer the option, and with everybody knowing that we're going to lose 3% of it if we choose to use a subject like that.
Well, plus all the paperwork that all of us would have to deal with.
There's always going to be that side of it too.
Well, I mean, that's going to come up here next of all the additional things that we're having to do that we haven't done in the past. And we've talked about a part-time person, and we really need a part-time person because, I mean, these people are putting in a lot of hours and a lot of stressful time with all the additional work.
Right.
And this would be something additional as well.
I guess if I had, and again, I have a voice, so I have an opinion that while this I think is a good idea, we've had some pretty good success with that. I guess it would almost be something that we could hold over to the new management team and change that may come there. There could be some systems put in play that may simplify everything, allow us to do a lot more of this in the future. I hate to see our employees do without a dollar if, they were deserving of that dollar given by a member and free and good faith to do that at Christmas time.
Well, yeah.
And I don't think we want to add any work to the staff right now.
No.
It is your busiest time of the year. You're dealing with getting out, our boat registrations, our vehicle registrations. You're compiling a lot of information this time of the year also.
Yeah.
So I think my thought would be maybe we should hold off on this, and then when we get into next year and we have a new management system in play, readdress some of these things as we go forward with that, with guidance from our membership. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'm in agreement. I mean, let's wait until the new manager and see, maybe they know something, and dealt with something before. But giving up 3%, I don't know enough about, I'm a dinosaur with this stuff. But I can't see giving up 3%. I just can't.
Amen. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just postpone that until we get new management system in play here, and then we can look at staffing issues and work issues as we draw into next year. I think that'd be a good topic. So,
Okay. I appreciate
very
that.
good. It makes perfect sense. I understand. And this time of year is extremely busy for you guys here.
Yeah. Well, yes. And it's gotten busier. I'll tell you. And we're running right into this next topic here, the admin and systems responsibilities. Building